Okay, so as I said, guys, please feel free to interrupt us, ask any questions throughout the webinar, and there will be a Q&A session at the end. And I'm just going to start here, and then Sarah's going to do a bit after me as well. So Sarah, if you want to just introduce yourself quickly.
Oh, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's going to be a really good session. I suppose today I'm going to talk a little bit about, my own experience being a college student and taking that gap year and kind of taking the plunge into English foreign language teaching. And yeah, no, it'll be a great session and we're going to go through all the ins and outs of it with you all now shortly.
Fabulous. Yeah, and as Sarah just mentioned there as well, guys, even though it's called like the gap year webinar, essentially it could be sabbatical, it could just be some time off, it could be your career change, it could just be you in the next year, deciding to change something or do something with TEFL. So that's what we'll be running through. Okay, so welcome everybody. What we're going to be running through, as Sarah's just said, we're going to be looking at gap year options, maybe a sabbatical, career change, and what you can do in the next kind of 12 months with a TEFL certificate. And we're going to be looking at Sarah's own story then with her own gap year and how it was her story, basically. And we're going to look at 3 options, guys, of kind of taking that gap year and what you can do. So the first option we're going to look at is basically going with a provider like ourselves. Okay, so basically going with an internship or a job program or position through an organized program with us. The second option would be to go independently yourself, so get TEFL trained up yourself and look at your own gap year options. And then the third option for your gap year or sabbatical year would be to get TEFL trained and teach online and then work remotely and teach wherever you'd like to go. So they're the 3 options we're going to be looking at. But in all these cases, and in those 3 kind of avenues you could go, there's a couple of things that we always recommend. So if you have a pen and paper, you can write it down, or as we said, it is recorded. But in the 3 options, always, along with having a kind of not qualified, but you do need a basic qualification, but you do as well need to look at getting some teaching practice under your belt before you kind of go out in this year. So a teaching practicum certificate is very important, okay, when looking at these type of positions and going out on your own. And you could enroll on those courses, and we'll go through that a little bit more at the end. Another thing that we have to look at is that our CV is full cover letter. We did do a previous webinar actually on that particular focus, which is very helpful as well. But we do have a CV service, and we've a recruitment department here that are very helpful in terms of getting your CV up to date and perfect for when you're applying for these positions or when you decide to kind of take that next step. As CV and cover letter can be quite different in the TEFL world. It's not your regular one. So check out our YouTube channel as well for an up-to-date CV and cover letter kind of guide as well with that. Okay. So yeah, as I said, check out our YouTube channel. We have a load of webinars on teaching online, CV and cover letters, perfect TEFL interviews. And as well, we have a couple of blogs on our website, how to write the perfect TEFL CV and cover letter, which are available to everybody here before you apply. Okay. Okay, so the first option I'm going to go through is I'm going to go through the option of taking that gap year or sabbatical year, but choosing to go down the route of applying through us or going with a provider. Okay, so I've talked to some of you before, but just to kind of run through it for everybody. To find employment, we have a list of kind of featured jobs and TEFL internships on our jobs board, okay? And each of those will have different criteria to be met and things like that. But we do have a couple of options open for the coming year. So if anybody could, throughout the session as well, pop into the chat box if you have any destination in mind, if you have any timeline in mind, to give us a little bit more background that we can run through kind of specific avenues and ones that might work better. So we have a couple of options this year available. We did have a couple of more, but all the positions have been filled. Obviously, with COVID and everything this year, positions are a lot more limited. So advice that we are giving to everybody at the moment is to really, really kind of get in touch if this is something you want to do in October, November. It's even a little bit late for that time. We do have a position in Taiwan for a gap year, starting in November and also starting in the spring, which is an option for people. It's a 12-month placement. We also have an option in South Korea that's starting in spring, okay, 2022, and that's another 12-month placement for a full year. Again, the benefit of those programs is that you're going with us, you're going through us. So basically, it's an easy, hassle-free way to get abroad. It's completely organized in terms of, we go through the application process with you. We make sure that you're fully eligible. You get those things, those benefits like accommodation, flight reimbursement, visa assistance. All those things are covered when you go through a provider like ourselves. And the way you can kind of think about it yourself is, like travel agents, you can go ahead and you can book online your own holiday. But if you want that assistance and that help, and you want, and more importantly, a group start date, which is something that I love about going through programs like with ourselves, is that, you're going with a community of teachers. If you decide to kind of go on your own, sometimes you're going on your own, a bit more, unless you're going with a group of friends and things like that. So it's nice to know that you have that community of people if you go through a provider, for sure. Okay. So the advantages of going with a provider like ourselves is great for first-time teachers. It's fully organized, and often a basic qualification will do. So a basic TEFL qualification is sufficient when you want to do one of these programs with us, okay? The disadvantages, I suppose, is that sometimes there's limited options. If you have a specific destination in mind, then we mightn't have a position in that country that you're thinking of going to. And that's why I would move on to the second option, is where you could go independently and get a job perhaps in your specific destination, at a language school or privately or whatever you might do. But if you do have that kind of destination that's in the back of your head and that you've always wanted to do and it's not an option with us, then what we suggest then is getting fully TEFL trained, and we can also help you find a job in that country, even though we don't have specific partners, say, on site in those countries. So we have a list of job websites here that I'm going to pop into the chat box for you to look at. And basically, guys, when you're applying to these, here we are. Yeah, when you are applying to positions independently, it's really important that you are kind of fully set up and fully prepped and fully qualified before you do so, because you kind of only have one chance of application, and it's best that you're fully kind of set up for that year before you even apply, without losing your chance, essentially. So having a look here, the one place that we're kind of recommending that you go independently for a gap year at the moment is Europe. And I suppose a big reason for that, for us Irish citizens, I suppose, is the whole visa regulation. And at the moment, COVID, it's we have to keep open-minded. People are starting to travel again, and we've had plenty of teachers placed in Asia and Europe in the last couple of months, which has been amazing. But it's obviously always something that's in the back of our brains that regulations might change, quarantine periods might change. So for us Irish citizens, it's a little bit nicer to know that we have that EU kind of regulation and the COVID, certain things like that, which make it a little bit easier. So as we said, the beauty of teaching in Europe is that you typically don't need a degree or a visa if you're from Ireland. Obviously we have people here who aren't from Ireland, and that's different. But Spain, France, Italy, these are kind of the most popular destinations for our graduates. We do have internships and jobs in these countries, but unfortunately we don't have positions at the moment open because they're full. But keep in mind that there are plenty of private language schools, guys, all over Europe, okay? And if our start dates don't suit you or there's a position not available, you can definitely go and apply independently, no problem at all. And one of the easiest ways to find work in Europe, and what I would do, is I always say search for your destination, your dream destination, okay? So just to give you a little bit more clarity on that, let's say I want to teach in Barcelona, okay? So what I do normally, it's kind of a four-step process. I search for Barcelona, I get a directory of English language schools, so a simple Google search um, that you could say is English language schools in Barcelona. Figure out, you'll have a list of English language schools then in front of you, figure out who the director of studies is and send them in an easy, or send them in, oh, sorry guys, apologies. Okay, we're back here. Sorry, guys, that just came through there. But a simple list of schools, find out who the director of studies is, and send them your CV and cover letter. A funny thing about TEFL or getting work in TEFL is that it's not always advertised. And even in those job websites that I put up there, there's always a massive turnover of teachers and always actual work available without it being so obviously advertised on these sites, okay? I myself have taught for about 4 years in Europe, and I actually never got a job, funnily enough, through one of these websites. I always just applied to schools directly, and there'd be a constant turnover of schools and teaching. So it's definitely worth your time applying to these schools, even if they're not advertising, okay, in Europe, for sure. Okay. And then send your CV, a cover letter, and a 1 minute intro video about yourself to all these schools. And as I said, we do have a really good webinar on our YouTube channel that go into a little bit more detail about your CV and cover letter. So that's worth checking out. And as well, guys, if you're looking to take a gap year, there's plenty of Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups for TEFL teachers. I would advise joining all those. If you just do a little search on Facebook, you know, TEFL teaching, TEFL teachers in Spain, TEFL teachers in France, and there's so many. So they're worth adding on as well. So I don't know, Sarah, if you want to kind of give your little bit background on the embassy section, because that's another route that you'd be a little bit more familiar than I would be.
Yeah, absolutely. So for these two particular countries, France and Spain, and I also think that there may be one for Germany as well. Um, the embassies situation in Ireland do run programs for college students, or if you are over the age of 20, to go teach on an assistantship in those countries. It's a fantastic program. I know tons of people that have done it themselves. There are a couple of requirements that you do have to, have to be eligible for the scheme. You do have to be an Irish national. You do have to be a native English speaker to be involved in those programs, and you do have to be between the ages of 20 and 35. Now, you do have to as well have completed the 2 years in college or in higher education. Now, it can be in any discipline. It can be, from science to business, or if you are directly involved, let's say in the arts, so in any of the languages, French, Spanish, it may be a good opportunity to go and, to practice in the country itself. But you would have to have kind of a working knowledge, I suppose, of the language just for yourselves to be able to go and, I suppose, be able to converse, know where to be able to ask, where the shop is, where the post office is, all of those. In terms of payment and things like that, it's more of an allowance that they would give you. In general, for the France option, accommodation is included, you're set up in the school. It's very similar setup to some of our internship programs, but it wouldn't be as well paid. You kind of get nearly 800 euros of an allowance. And the work hours aren't great in terms of, you'd have maybe 12 to 13 hours a week, whereas our programs would have a much higher kind of, I suppose, tutor time during the week.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. Thanks so much. So that's a little bit, guys, about Europe. And myself and Sarah have both taught in Europe for a while. So please feel free, as I said, to put in a question, anything about Europe and taking that gap year or taking that year or 2 years out of the current career that you're in. Yeah, we're experts in that field. The next destination I kind of really wanted to talk about was Asia and the Middle East. This is also another great option for a 12-month kind of stint abroad. Um, the beauty about Asia and the Middle East, I suppose, in general, is the kind of packages that come with it. Um, in contrast to Europe, I suppose the benefit of Europe is that you're closer to home and things like that. But with Asia and Middle East, there's very, very, very good, well-paid packages available and careers. So basically, you get high paid in the Middle East and in Asia, but in places like Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, China, all these would have 12-month placement in a school, flight reimbursement, visa sponsorship, medical insurance, bonus schemes. They're really, really good, safe, secure, and a great kind of gap year to take if you're looking to save money, and you're really looking to come home with a little bit of money. Um, they're a great option for you guys. Personally, I think South Korea is fantastic, and I love the Japan programs as well. They've my top two in terms of kind of saving money. And it's a really big industry out in Asia and Middle East. So you'd meet a lot of like-minded people. You're never going to be on your own. And there are a lot of Irish, English, UK, American, Canadian teachers out there. And there's a really big community of English language teachers. And it's a very well-respected profession in Asia as well, in terms of, it's you're looked, you're really respected and everything out there. So it's a lovely, lovely feeling, and a great place to be on a gap year. The only thing with the Asia and the Middle East is that a degree is normally necessary for these programs, and it's more to do with the working permit in Asia and in the Middle East. Um, a degree is almost always needed for getting jobs in language schools. So that's something that you have to consider. Um, However, it doesn't rule out absolutely everybody. If there's somebody here who doesn't have a degree, do not panic, because I'll move on to our third option here, where we talk about taking a gap year or a sabbatical or a career break, is the lovely option, and the option that I do myself as well, and Sarah's done a bit as well, is teaching online, guys. The beauty, and the one thing I always say about teaching online, is that you're not kind of stuck or anything to any type of criteria. You don't need to have a degree. You don't need to have all these kind of specific requirements. Once you secure your job online, you can go from country to country, of course, depending on different restrictions at the time. But you can hop from country to country.
Kate, I'm not sure if anyone else, maybe if you could put up a thumbs up, everyone, if Kate is frozen there for you as well. There may be kind of Wi-Fi issues, I'm sure.
On holiday visas, on different type of visas, it doesn't have to be that full working permit 12 months you want to go to.
I think we're back. I think we're back there now. You're on mute, Kate.
Sorry, guys, that completely switched. My technology is not working for me today. Completely switched off, but can you hear me okay?
You're back in action.
Great, great. Okay. So yeah, that's the beauty of teaching online. Technology sometimes can fall down on you, but as I was just saying there before, I was very, very, very lucky from the year, I think it was 2017 and 18. I was actually in 25 countries in that 2 year period. I kind of took a break from work and decided to go off for 2 years, kind of in and out teaching English. in 25 countries, which I am very happy to say. And it was an amazing, amazing time between South America, Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, to Dubai, Fiji, Australia, New Zealand. And this was all done teaching online. And I didn't actually have to save a lot of money because I had I could supplement my income. And as I traveled along, all you need is a Wi-Fi and a good connection, and you can take that year break. So don't feel like if you don't have a degree or something like that, that you can't take that year break, because it's so possible. Um, okay, so the next thing, I think I'm going to pass you on to Sarah now to tell us a little bit about her own gap year and her own personal experience. And as I said, guys, please, please feel free to put the questions in the chat box if you have anything there.
Yeah, absolutely. Please ask loads of questions. We're more than happy to help. I think one of the most important parts of, taking a gap year or a sabbatical, a career break, like Kate was saying, and starting out with TEFL is to decide on your qualification and the type of qualification that you're going to enroll onto. That's really important because you want to get the best possible training, or the training that best suits your needs. So that's number one on my list always, is to just, get in contact with us, let us know, your plans, where you're looking to go, what kind of work you're looking for. Is it online? Are you looking to go to Asia, Europe, or even part-time work at home in Ireland as well? That's possible. So definitely get in touch with us, and feel free to ask us questions here as well. So about my own story, I suppose I enrolled onto a TEFL course, a level 5 TEFL course, back in 2019, while I was in my second year in college. So I was getting ready to go out on an Erasmus year, which I'm sure if you're a college student, you've definitely heard of. It's a European run program where you would go from your Irish university to a partner university anywhere in Europe, to, further your studies in a different environment. It's a fantastic program. There's tons of planning involved. You have to have your savings to go over. There's so many different elements that go into traveling. I'm sure, eating out, exploring the tourist destinations, partying, if that's something that interests you. I don't know. But all of these things do cost money, which is why I enrolled onto the TEFL course originally, was to potentially get part-time work while I was studying in a French language school. I was going to go to Versailles, which is in Paris, outside Paris. And, I thought that was kind of the dream. But then COVID hit for my 2020 plans, which was so unfortunate. The only croissant and coffee smells of the Paris streets that I were getting were from scented candles. But that happens, and it happened to us all, but we did get through it. So, essentially that was a gap year for me. I didn't have any plans, I had nothing to do, but I had my TEFL course. So once my TEFL course was completed, I started online work on a platform, which was great. It was good pay for what I was doing, for the training that I had, but I did feel like I needed something more. So I did then a 10-hour virtual training, which is teaching practice certification, and that just brought up my pay enormously. It was fantastic. It was a great, 2 days over Zoom during the pandemic. Great for something to do, but also then getting a qualification out of it, which then brought up my pay in online teaching, which was fantastic. And we do have all of that specialist training with the TEFL Institute and the TEFL Institute of Ireland. If you are already a TEFL qualified teacher and you're looking for teaching practice or to upskill, if you are set on teaching young learners, we can help you out. Or business English as well is something that's really popular at the moment. So it's great to be able, to tailor your training to your interests, and, at the end of the day, what's going to make you money as well. So online teaching, it opened so many doors for me. I know that if I wanted to go travel somewhere, I have that security behind me of, teaching online. If, I don't get a job, let's say in France or Spain or Italy, it's great to have, you know, online teaching behind me. And that's, I suppose, what's so great about my position here at the TEFL Institute. It's, you know, getting to share all of our own experiences with you and set you on your way and start you on your journey to, you know, your TEFL, you know, becoming a TEFL teacher, which is fantastic. It's a good opportunity as well, I suppose, for a brain break. You want to avoid burnout. A degree is such an intense process, as enjoyable as it is. Even the working year as well, you know, your 9 to 5, it can be tough, and you know, it's a good way to nearly take a break and do something fun and interactive. You're getting to meet new people from new countries constantly. It's great. It's a great profession, and you don't need the 4 year degree or a super expensive master's program, you know, to get involved. TEFL is great, inexpensive, cost effective way and a fast track way to get a teaching qualification and to start. You know, it's not a long process at all, and you can start and get teaching everywhere. You know, I've traveled to South Africa, Singapore, Australia, France, Italy, all of those countries, and all you have to do is pack your laptop and go, and it's fantastic, and I would recommend it to absolutely all of you.
I I'm so with you there, Sarah. Like I really am. It's 100%. There's a couple of questions there that just came in, so I'm just going to take those. So we have one there. Is it any kind of degree or should it be a teaching degree? So I'm not sure where you mean in terms of if it's Asia or Europe, but normally all over the world, a degree in any discipline is perfect for a working permit. It doesn't actually have to be a teaching degree, like for example South Korea or Japan or whatever it might be. So a degree in any discipline. And then there's a question there from Kay as well. What are some of the online platforms we can apply to? So I'm actually just going to pop into the chat box there a list of 13 um, companies there that you can apply to. So you can have a look at that little article. It's a brilliant article about 13 different online platforms now that are hiring. So you can have a look at that. And as well, as I said, check out our YouTube channel on the webinar on teaching online as well. Um, and Kay, there's a question there. How much do the different programs cost? Okay. So do you mean the actual TEFL courses to get fully trained or licensed, or do you mean the internships or jobs with us? If you want to specify there, that'd be great. But in terms, just to go through a little bit of the TEFL training, um, as I said, everybody needs a basic TEFL qualification, and you can either do a level 3 or a level 5. And they differ. They start from about €179 at the moment to about €279. But as Sarah was saying, it's so important to kind of, well, it's not so important, but if you really want to improve your chances of employment and make sure that you get the higher end of that pay bracket, then you need to have a teaching practice certificate. So that's the only thing I would recommend, guys, if none of you have it here. 1,000,000% get on that teaching practicum, because not only does it kind of improve your salary, but it also gives you more opportunity. You know, it makes you stand out from the crowd. Other candidates, you know, you're gonna have that little bit more of an edge when you're applying, and it just makes the whole job process a lot easier for you. So okay, the jobs and internships, please. I'm already TEFL qualified. Okay, so Kay, I don't know if you'd be interested in either um Taiwan or South Korea, or which one you're particularly kind of focusing on. But just to give you an example, I'll give you an example. My favorite one is South Korea, just because I love that program. So I'm just going to give you an example of that. Um, so the South Korea program, at the moment, to apply for a 12-month program set up. Okay, you're more focused on Europe. That's no problem. So our internships in Europe, we'd be looking at the ones that we have is France, Italy, and we are looking at setting up a partnership quite soon in Spain as well. We already have one, but the positions are completely full. So we're looking at trying to get more schools open and things like that. But normally they'd be about 5, 6, €700. Okay, but that includes the full training for everything. It includes, you know, your full setup, full 24/7 hour support. basically like always having someone at the other end of the phone when you're there. It's for not that it's for first time teachers, but you do have that massive community when you arrive and you're starting with other teachers, accommodation, all those type of things are included in the package. So we're doing the hard work for you. You know, we're setting you up with other like-minded people. It's more of a community, and the full training obviously is included as well. Orientation, training when you're there, CPD, so continual professional development when you're there. Going the independent way is great, but it also doesn't allow you to upskill. Going with the internships or the supported job placements, you're continuing your training throughout your gap year. So there's always workshops, there's always, you know, continual professional development, which I love. Another one there, this question there, what are the work permit or visa requirements to work as a TEFL teacher in Spain as a non-EU passport? So I'm not 100% of the work permit criteria, to be honest with you. Best way to do that is to ring the Spanish embassy and just give them a buzz. And another way that you could do that as well is if you go independently and you get the best comprehensive kind of training possible, if you start applying to language schools, they can also sponsor you if they want you to come over and they're happy with your qualifications and your CV, they can organize the permit for you. So that's another way to go down. But I would ring the Spanish embassy just to find out the exact criteria and make sure you meet everything, and then start applying to language schools as well. And I just got a private message that came in there, Sarah, I think it's for you, but it's just about teaching. Let me read it there. Yeah, how much would you expect to make in France? Do you know? I don't know. Do you know much about that? But
Yeah, so it would really depend on your qualification and which language school you are with. So, for example, for myself, when I went, I didn't have my degree. I was only halfway through, taking my year off and kind of learning as I went. So I was really getting 15 euros an hour in a language school, which is great. It's, generally kind of between 5 to 15 people in a classroom. It's not as big as, let's say, your conventional classroom size in Ireland, which could be nearly 30 students. So about 15 is the average pay, I believe. But you could also, if you're doing online teaching for, let's say, a French language school, really depending on your training and your own experience and your teaching practice certification, you could be looking at more than that, maybe upwards of 20 euros an hour as well. It just totally depends on the school, yourself, your qualifications and experience.
absolutely. And just on that, when you're talking about the different types of training, I spent 6 months studying in Germany. And what I didn't realize, working in Germany, but what I didn't realize in Germany is that they are very business focused in the TEFL industry. So I was kind of more used to general English. You know, I taught in Malta and Spain, and it was all very conversational and general. But when I went to Germany, I didn't realize that there really, really was a massive focus on business English. And I didn't actually have the business English qualification. I had my basic primary one and the teaching practice, but I didn't have the business. So I decided to go back and actually just upskilled with a 30-hour business English course. And it opened so many doors for me in Germany. There's a big business school and they're called Berlitz, if anybody wants to check them out, if they have a business qualification. But all over Europe, they're called Berlitz and they're business focused. But I was then, after I got that upskilling qualification, I was then able to go and apply for that job I wanted. So yeah, it's just about kind of knowing the school, knowing what they specialize in. It's different in every country for sure. And looking at, I suppose, I don't know how qualified people are here, but in terms of what the TEFL Institute can do for you guys, is basically looking at those options with you, booking in a call with us if you have a little bit more questions or you're uncertain about what you can apply for, or you're not quite sure, you're torn between two options. Feel free to pick up the phone at any stage and give us a call, and we'll run through your options with you. We would highly recommend as well, I just feel nowadays that a primary TEFL qualification is great, but it's really making you stand out from the crowd if you go that little bit more with the specialist kind of niches. So instead of going with just your primary TEFL qualification, you are now licensed in 5 different areas, or you have that qualification in business, or you have that qualification in exam English, which you can get paid so much more for. So if you're looking at enrolling onto any of those, and you're kind of unsure, feel free to give us a call at any stage. If there's any other questions, you can pop them into the box there as well. Highly recommend checking out the YouTube channel as well, where we've done all different kind of recruitment sessions on different countries in general, or more specific countries, or teaching online more specifically as well. Definitely worth checking out. Sarah, do you have anything else there you want to go on?
I suppose just, with Europe, I suppose France and Spain I'd be the most familiar with. Definitely with the specialist training, you would be looking at the advanced grammar training. That's something that particularly France are so particular about. For example, I've been recently on a call with a woman from France and she was so delightful, but she said, just for myself knowing, how are you? I am well. They really, instead of how are you doing, I am doing well, they're so particular about grammar. So your grammar course is you would read, it's a necessity, I would say. And definitely your teaching experience as well. I can't recommend the 10-hour course enough, whether you have a 180-hour level 5 qualification, or at the moment you're on the 120-hour Premier TEFL course from our accredited range. Get on to the 10-hour virtual training. You so need it, you really do. And it will give you all of the tools for classroom management, lesson planning, and it'll give you those skills and the confidence to just get out there.
Yeah, and there's another question that just came in there, so I'm just going to answer it. Is why is the South Korea program your favorite? And to be completely honest, I've always been kind of fascinated with South Korea anyway, so I could be a small bit biased in that regard. But definitely the organization of the program, how well run it is, and the pay and the money you can save, because it's hard. Like in Europe, sometimes you definitely get by and you live perfectly, but I wouldn't say in Europe that I ever saved buckets of money to come home to buy a house with, that kind of a way. So I feel like with the South Korea program, as well as getting that really good training throughout the year and throughout your sabbatical or whatever it might be, you do really have the opportunity to save. So you're actually coming home, with money, which is lovely to know. And obviously the experience and being in South Korea and everything like that is amazing. Just with the flight reimbursement and the bonus systems in place and the good pay, you do come home with things. And there's a really big community of ESL teachers out there, which I like as well. It's a really big English learning hub. So that's fun. Obviously, that's fun too, that there's a lot of like-minded people around you. And yeah, every person that we send out there with the TEFL Institute of Ireland are always super happy and always end up staying more than 1 year. So I think that's a really good telltale sign of why South Korea is a great program to go for. But just on those program, guys, honestly, if there's anybody looking to apply to those, there are very limited spots. I think South Korea, we only have 2 or 3 left. So if it's something you want to do, definitely give us a buzz. And Taiwan, I think we have a little bit more availability. I think there's 5, 6, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But definitely, especially if it's for the upcoming months, definitely give us a call about that and get booked in, because they're really limited availability this year. Yeah, and I just want to put, guys, in the chat there as well, just as a thank you for everyone who attended our session today. We are giving everyone an extra 15% off any course you want to upskill on. So if it's a specialist course, if it's the teaching practice course, if it's the internship, whatever it might be, at all, we're giving 15% off anybody who attended this webinar today, and it's in the chat box there. And we will be sending an email afterwards as well, guys, with a little bit more detail and a kind of link to get in touch with us after today. And yeah, I think that's it from us. If there's nothing else there or question wise, and just to say thank you for being so interactive with the questions as well, because it's good to give us a little bit of guidance on to know what people are interested in, to figure out what people are looking for, because it's, you know, it's always changing and the trends are always changing, so it's nice to know as well. Yeah, I think that's it from me. Sarah, anything final?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for attending. And I suppose as well, definitely go check out our Instagram pages, give us a follow, the TEFL Institute and the TEFL Institute of Ireland as well. Definitely give us a follow. We have so much great content, brilliant reels if you want to see us, you know, making fools of ourselves in the best way. And yeah, loads of different travel destinations as well to keep an eye out for. So definitely go give us a follow on there.
Yeah, great. Guys, thanks a mil, and we'll talk to you all very soon. Thanks very much.
Take care, everyone.